Welcome to Stately Investing. To all of my new viewers, hello, and to all of my returning viewers, welcome back. In today's episode, we're going to talk about 2020 and whether or not it was a good dividend year for me. We're going to do a bit of a recap, look at some metrics, and understand how this dividend journey went for the whole year. We have 12 months of data, and we're going to look at it in quite a bit of detail. But first, if you want a channel that is going to help you speed up your journey to financial freedom through dividend growth investing, Stately Investing is the place for you. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and turn on notifications, and let's get started. So was 2020 a good dividend year? Let's find out. In today's episode, we're going to look at 3 metrics that represent my portfolio value. So we'll look at all of my dividend portfolios, not just my M1 passive account, which is the main account that we track here on the channel, but we'll look at everything that generates a dividend for me, and we'll look at how it performed throughout the year. So why don't we jump right in and see what the first metric is. So first, we are going to look at the total amount of dividends, right? That's why you guys are all here. You want to see what that number is. And we're going to look at my dividend tracker. But to reveal what that number is, it is $3,822.78 for the year of 2020. That puts us at a monthly average of $318.57, which is amazing, right? If you told me, a year ago or even before that, that I'd be making, $320 every month in just dividend income, I would have sworn you were nuts, right? And this really gets to the power of time and compounding. And if you guys have watched some of my previous videos, I'm a big fan of passive income and just the ability to invest money and then have nothing to do, right? You just let it sit there and it makes money for you, to the tune, for me at least, of $300 and almost $20 every single month. And that number is only going to go up, right? If I keep investing and I don't take money out of the market, that money will continue to work for me. And as I reinvest those dollars, right? So that $3,800 this year, I have not withdrawn any of that money. All of that money will go back into purchasing additional shares of the stocks that I love and that generate dividends. So why don't we check this out in the tracker so you guys can see how the numbers actually work. Okay, so we are here in the dividend tracker, and if you are new to the channel, some of you may not have seen this before. This is my dividend tracker. This particular tab looks at all of my accounts. So I have 3 M1 accounts, M1 passive, which is the main portfolio that we track, M1 Roth, which is a small Roth or IRA account that I have, my M1 bonds, which essentially I use as an emergency cash fund, but I put it into treasuries, so that does actually generate dividends. Acorns, which some of you are probably familiar with Acorns. If not, I'll put a link down below. You can check them out. But Acorns basically rounds up all of your transactions to be whole. So if you purchase something with a card, whether it's a credit card or a debit card, you link that card to your Acorns account, and say you spend 99 cents on something, it will round it up to $1. And then that 1 cent is actually deposited into an investment account with Acorns. So that account is fairly small, and I might do a video on Acorns so you guys can see what's in my account and how you kind of pick from different portfolio strategies there. But it does generate dividends for me. Next is Charles Schwab. That's a small account for me where I have just kind of random stocks, not necessarily random, right? I pick them and, purchase them with reason, but they don't really fit into any of my other portfolios. Or, I used some like employee purchase power money in order to purchase those stocks. And so it's kind of a random account. Then my Fidelity rollover IRA is actually my biggest account, right? Between Fidelity rollover and my TD rollover IRAs, those are very large accounts with particularly large sums of money in them. And so they generate dividends and quite a bit of dividends, particularly my Fidelity rollover IRA. I have all of those are ETFs. So I recently have kind of changed the strategy of that account to become an ETF fund only, because I don't want to have to manage my individual stocks there. So those 5 funds that I have there actually generate dividends for me as well. Robinhood, we have tracked my Robinhood account over the course of several videos, and you can check out, I'll put a link link to one of my M1 versus Robinhood videos up top so you guys can see the differences between the two platforms. But Robinhood I use for undervalued stocks, but they are also dividend generating stocks, right? So I only put dividend generating stocks in that account, but they are ones that I think are a good value at the time of purchase. And then lastly are my two TD accounts. I have one small IRA, which is focused on healthcare stocks. It's a sector oriented portfolio. And then my TD rollover IRA is another large fund similar to my Fidelity rollover account that is focused on ETFs as well. And that also generates dividends for me. So you can see the total for the year, or you can see the total by month. So back in January, $26, February, $20, March, $315. And you can watch my previous video on why timing of measurements makes a difference, right? So you can see there's kind of a big jump between January and March. And so the end of the quarter tends to be my highest month out of the quarter. So that's March, June, September, and December. And so those will always be higher than the months in between. But what's important is to look at the comparisons against each of the comparative months, because most stocks pay out their dividends quarterly. So if we look at March versus June, you can see that I'm growing. And then June versus September, a big growth there. And then September versus December, big growth there. December is always an outlier because I have a particular fund that pays out yearly. And so it pays out at the end of the year. But you can see if we sum up all of these numbers for the year, that's how we got to that $3,822.78, which I am particularly proud of. This trend goes up, and it's only going to go up in 2021. So why don't we jump back over to the slide and we can see the next metric. Okay, we are ready to reveal the next metric, and it is, what is my highest monthly dividend total? So you guys, if you were paying careful attention in the last segment, you would have seen it, but it is December of 2020, and that amount is $1,326.97. So that is the highest dividend month that I have in my history. Obviously, I just explained to you that December is always my highest month because of that one ETF that I have that pays out yearly. But this is amazing, right? And compared to the monthly average, it's almost $1,000. It is more than $1,000 over the monthly average. So that 1 month really brings up the total every year. But it is great to kind of get that at the end of the year. It's always fun and exciting to see that huge number. And if we look at the next metric, we'll actually compare the previous December to see a good picture of growth, right? So my last metric is year over year growth. I want to know how I did at the end of this year versus how I did at the end of the previous year. And so this metric will give me insights into that. And so if we look at December 2020 versus December 2019, it is a 70% growth rate, which is awesome, right? So looking at those two totals, $1,325, let's say, versus $780, there's a growth of 70%, which just shows that by putting more money into the market and growing my dividends, I am getting paid out in dividends, right? And those dividends are really working. And this whole idea of dividend growth investing and dividend reinvesting really does pay off in the long term. And so you might see these kind of small numbers here and there as you go through the months, and you might see some ups and downs. But if you look at a longer term perspective, right, so even just a year difference, you can see the growth and that the strategy is working. We want those numbers to be going up when we look at years, and then even it'll look even better when we look at a 5-year mark or we look at a 10-year mark, right? So this is a long-term strategy. You guys can check out a previous video I had on investing versus trading and what the differences are between long-term investing and short-term trading. It's a really helpful video if you're just getting new to investing. So hopefully all of this information was helpful to you out there watching. I'm really excited for 2021. I did a video on my 2021 resolutions. You can check that out in the channel. Hopefully you guys are either getting started with your dividend journey or growing your dividend journey. Feel free to leave me comments below on your 2020 recap. And did you do what you expected? Did you do even better than you expected? Hopefully there are a lot of happy stories out there. But I love all the comments and the feedback. So stay tuned for 2021 and some more videos this year. I might take a slight dip in videos videos because I'm moving in the next few weeks. But overall, the channel is excited to grow, and I'm excited to have you all here with me. Appreciate all the likes and subscribes. Thanks, and I will see you again next week.